And I must admit, I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed that album, although I think I was a bit too self-indulgent for me. I think I got a bit too over the top with it, because I got more into the production side then, and I was fiddling about. And but yeah, I think it was probably slightly apart from some of the other albums we've done.
Give it all and ask for no return, and very soon you'll see, and you'll begin to learn that it's alright. 'Cause it's alright.
Technical Ecstasy was the first album we brought in. We had a keyboard player then, Jez Woodruff, who went on to work with Robert Plant later. I wanted somebody I could work with, you know, to swap ideas and to support me. If I want to play something, you got somebody there. And Jez was, you know, a good one to have. He'd play the chords while I try things out. And so Technical Ecstasy was born with him involved in it, really. And yeah, it was a bit different to the other stuff, but there were some good songs on that album, I think. And from that things started falling apart a bit after that.
The neon lights are shining on me again. I walk along these streets in search of a friend. I need a lady to help me to get through the night, through the night.
Welcome to episode 7 of my Black Sabbath Deep Dive series, and today I'm talking about their 7th studio album, Technical Ecstasy. This was released in October of 1976, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any Black Sabbath fan who didn't consider this and their next album the weakest of the Ozzy era Black Sabbath albums. They just are, and there's a number of reasons for that. The cocaine and the drug use, the alcohol abuse finally caught up with the band. Also, they were trying to soften and commercialize their sound just to stay viable. Just like a lot of progressive, a lot of heavy bands were. They were trying to appeal to a broader audience. And I think it was really self-preservation because a lot of bands were worried they were going to get left behind. They might lose their record contract. They might lose their audience if they didn't start to adapt. And so Black Sabbath went to Criteria Studios in Miami, sunny Miami. And Tony Iommi, once again, was producing the album almost entirely on his own, while the rest of the band were kind of relaxing by the pool. And I think it's fair to say that Black Sabbath started to suffer a little bit of burnout by this point. Not just burnout from the drugs, but they were under tremendous pressure with all of the legal issues associated with suing their back manager, who in turn sued them. There's just a lot of crap going on, and I think after 6 tremendously solid albums, it's not that big of a surprise that eventually there was gonna be a fall off. Now, whether that fault lies with Black Sabbath themselves and the direction that they decided to go in, or just the fact that their tanks had kind of run out of gas. But nonetheless, this is not by any means a terrible album. And I know in lead into this album, you're probably thinking, if you haven't heard it, this album must be a piece of garbage. It's not a horrible album. It's certainly not as good as any of their first 6, and to my opinion anyway. But I think there are some very enjoyable moments on this record, even if it's not solid all the way through. The cover was designed by Hipgnosis, first of 2 covers that Hipgnosis would design during the Ozzy era, and this is supposed to be 2 robots getting intimate with each other on an escalator.
Technical Ecstasy may have been the title from them, I would think. And I think Storm interpreted that as two robots falling in love, which I then set out to draw, and I drew them as just sketches. And then later on, we looked at it, and it wasn't a very interesting story because they were just falling in love, and we had them fall in love on an escalator, one going up, one coming down, just because it made it a sadder tale, basically.
Let's get into the songs. So it starts off with Backstreet Kids, which sounds like classic Black Sabbath. It has a heavy chugging rhythm, very heavy. I think it's a melodic song. To me, one of the best tracks on this album, actually, and one that I think picked up perfectly from the Sabotage album. I don't have any issues with this song.
I'm down.
Also, the next track, You Won't Change Me. I don't have any problems with this one either. It's very heavy. That guitar riff is definitely Black Sabbath. This is done in the Black Sabbath style. The first two tracks on here, I think, are a perfect progression in the right direction from Sabotage and from Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. In fact, You Won't Change Me is probably the darkest, heaviest, a track that most resembles the classic Black Sabbath. Then we get into the Bill Ward composition, It's All Right. It's not all right, Bill Ward. This is not a song the Black Sabbath should have been recording. No idea what he's talking about in the lyrics. It seems to be some kind of, oh, feel good, everything's all right, it's just chill. It sounds so far removed from anything Black Sabbath had recorded. I mean that in a bad way. I know there's some of you out there who may be like, I like that song. That's not how I like my Black Sabbath. I think it's a bad look for Black Sabbath. And this is where they were trying to reach a commercial audience, maybe trying to get this on the radio. And there are interviews where Tony Iommi was saying, well, if you didn't like Black Sabbath before, try us now. Maybe you'll like this version of Black Sabbath. When people say they don't like this album, this is one of the reasons. It's all right. It doesn't work. It just does not work for me. Maybe it works for you, but for me, it's difficult to listen to. It's not an easy listen. The last track on side one, I think, is a very interesting experimentation from Black Sabbath. You've got Bill Ward, who treats his drums electronically. I'm not sure what effect he gets on the drums at the beginning, but I'm down with it. And there's also a lot of synthesizer on this particular song. I don't think it's overdone.
Watch the universe at the death of another day. Fatalistic ships from a distant shore. In the back of my mind, I could feel she was standing there, like the feeling you have when you've been there before. She was a gypsy woman. She was as cold as the day. She said, "I got it coming," and then she took me away. She took me through the shadows of her sunken dream. I thought it's over for me. It wasn't all she
Would it have been the weakest track on any of the previous 6 Sabbath albums? You might have an argument there. It's okay. It's a decent track. I'm not in love with it, but I don't hate it either. Side 2 opens up with "All moving parts stand still," which, I mean, I guess it's heavy. It's just not dark, heavy, plotting like I tend to prefer my early Black Sabbath. And again, they were branching out. They were trying to lighten up a little bit. I mean, they were in Miami, for Christ's sake. You're not going to write doom and gloom material sunning yourself in Miami. So I guess, knowing that it was recorded there, I guess it understands how this has a much lighter tone.
Superanimation, turning on a nation, and they say all moving parts stand still. Since he was elected, adrenaline injected. Hear him say all moving parts should kill. Just like the hero, he's got them all on the run. Yes, he's one, yeah, yeah. Since he passed the motion, the building in the ocean, and he say all men should all be free. What a combination! It's radiation, and he's saying free men should fight for me. Just like his mama, he seems to get his pleasure from pain and the rain. Ain't that strange? Very strange, yeah. I like choking toys.
This song is okay. I don't hate it. I'd say it's probably average Black Sabbath. The next track, Rock and Roll Doctor. Did you ever imagine after the first 6 Sabbath albums that you would have songs on a Black Sabbath album that were titled It's All Right or Rock and Roll Doctor? Rock and Roll Doctor sounds like the title of a Kiss song, and I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, but it's just, really? Black Sabbath singing about a rock and roll doctor? Okay, I guess. This song's all right. It's heavy. It's got a cool groove to it. I don't hate it. It would still be, for me, the weakest track on any of the first 6 Sabbath albums, but at least it's a little bit closer, a little bit more on brand for Black Sabbath than some of the other stuff here. Like She's Gone. No, not that She's Gone. It's a ballad, yes, but it's ballad done in Sabbath style. It opens up with a string quartet or strings, and it's just a slower kind of ballad, which, I wouldn't mind it so much if we didn't already have It's All Right, but it's not terrible. It's just, again, bottom shelf Black Sabbath for me. And the last track, another standout. I like Dirty Women a lot. Dirty Women is a kick-ass track. One of the highlights, one of the standouts on this album, and a great way to close it out. It's a bit longer. It's like over 7 minutes long, but they do a nice little instrumental workout. They're jamming out at the end. Kind of saves the album for me. But this is, it's an inconsistent album. I would say there are 3 very good songs on this album, 3 that are just so-so, and 2 that I think would be B-sides or should have just been left off the album. Failed experiments, I guess maybe you could categorize it that way. But that's my take on Technical Ecstasy. Do I hate the album? Do I think it sucks? No, but it's certainly not up to the standards of the first 6 Black Sabbath albums. That's my take. Let me know what you think on this very polarizing album. Did Black Sabbath go too far, or do you think it's fine? Was it a natural progression and they needed to go in that direction? Anyway, let me know what you think, and take care.
Your friends and